It's the most famous rule in all of fiction. If you aren't worthy, the hammer doesn't budge. Simple, right? Except it's been lifted a lot. What? By gods, by aliens, by a frog, and even by a literal office assistant.
Oh, hell no!
25 characters, one legendary hammer. Let's get into it. Thor Odinson, the god of thunder, is the gold standard, the man whose name is literally etched into the metal. But Thor's journey with Mjolnir is defined more by his failures than his successes. For centuries, he treated the hammer as a toy of war. It took a forced exile to Earth, living as the mortal Donald Blake, to realize that being a god isn't about the lightning you command, but the people you protect.
Hell no, man.
Thor's relationship with Mjolnir is a constant dialogue between a man and his conscience, proving that even a god has to check his soul every time he reaches for the handle. Deadpool.
What?
Wade Wilson and Divine Power are a match made in a mental asylum. Loki once tricked Deadpool into thinking he was the real Thor by giving him a holographic fake hammer. Deadpool went on a rampage of good deeds that mostly just caused property damage, only to realize he'd been played for a fool. While Wade has moments of genuine heroism, the hammer usually finds him too annoying to cooperate with. He's the only guy who can make Mjolnir feel like it's being held by a caffeinated toddler. Beta Ray Bill. Forget everything you think a god should look like. In 1983, a horse-faced alien cyborg named Beta Ray Bill didn't just stumble upon Mjolnir, he beat Thor in a fair fight and snatched it out of the air. This wasn't a glitch. Bill was the bioengineered guardian of a dying race who had sacrificed his physical form to become a monster so his people could live. When he grabbed that Uru handle, the hammer didn't see an alien. It saw a heart so purely devoted to self-sacrifice that it bypassed the Asgardian-only rule entirely. Odin was so rattled, he had the dwarves forge a second hammer, called Stormbreaker, ensuring Bill would always have a seat at the table of legends. And Stormbreaker obviously needs no introduction. Superman, the Man of Steel, is the ultimate icon of DC Comics, and in the legendary JLA Avengers crossover, he achieved the impossible. With the multiverse collapsing, Thor realized only Clark Kent had the moral clarity to lead the final charge. He tossed the Mjolnir, and Superman caught it mid-flight, wielding the hammer and his own shield simultaneously. It was a peak fanboy moment, but the twist came afterward. Once the villain was defeated, Superman tried to pick the hammer up again and couldn't budge it an inch. Thor explained that the hammer is semi-sentient. It recognized a universal emergency and allowed the Man of Steel to borrow the juice. It serves as a reminder that while Superman is a saint, he isn't an Asgardian warrior at heart. Awesome Andy. This is the ultimate middle finger to Asgardian mysticism. Awesome Andy was an android designed to mimic his opponents. When he fought Thor, he didn't just copy his muscles, he copied his worthiness like a file transfer. Because Andy was a blank slate with no ego or hidden agendas, he was technically the most pure being on the planet. The hammer saw a perfect reflection of Thor and said, "Close enough." The hilarious part? Being worthy actually gave the robot a soul, and he immediately used his newfound sentience to quit being a villain and become a legal assistant. Dr. Doom. Victor Von Doom doesn't care about your enchantments. While others pray for worthiness, Doom hacks the system. When Mjolnir fell into the pits of hell, the magical firewalls were down. Doom, trapped in that same demonic dumpster fire, didn't wait for a worthiness notification. He used his sheer, arrogant willpower and a cocktail of forbidden sorcery to force the hammer into the air. He didn't want to save the world. He just used the lightning to blast a hole through the gates of the afterlife and flip off the devil on his way out. Captain America. Steve Rogers is the only guy who can make a god feel insecure. In the Fear Itself event, Cap's iconic shield was shattered into pieces by an Asgardian fear god. Most men would have quit, but Steve just reached down, gripped Mjolnir, and screamed, "Avengers Assemble!" with a voice that shook the heavens. The hammer flies to him because Steve is the living embodiment of the selfless soldier. He doesn't have the warrior's madness or the pride of a prince. He has the steady, unwavering heart of a kid from Brooklyn who refuses to stay down.
I can do this all day.
Venom. When the King in Black turned the Earth into a giant goth nightmare, Eddie Brock became the host for the Enigma Force, the literal light of the universe. Eddie summoned Mjolnir, fused it with the Silver Surfer's board, and created a cosmic battle axe that could cleave through the darkness of the void. Venom wasn't good in the traditional sense, but he was the only tool the universe had left. It was a brutal, terrifying display of what happens when the hammer decides that worthy means whoever is crazy enough to kill the Dark God. Wonder Man. Simon Williams is a walking, talking battery of ionic energy who occasionally forgets which side he's on. During a chaotic era where Thor was having a massive identity crisis, the hammer's enchantment started acting like a faulty Wi-Fi connection. Wonder Man managed to hoist the mallet through a mix of raw physical dominance and a spark of genuine nobility. He didn't become a permanent wielder, but his ability to handle the Uru proved that even a hero with a checkered past can find grace when his heart and his power level align perfectly for a split second. Jane Foster. When Thor became unworthy, the hammer sat on the moon, ghosting everyone who tried to lift it. Then came Jane Foster. She was dying of stage 4 cancer, but every time she picked up that Uru handle, she became a goddess. The twist? The magic purged her body of toxins, which included the chemotherapy keeping her alive. Every second she spent being a hero was literally killing her mortal self. Jane didn't just lift the hammer, she owned it, performing tricks with the flight patterns that made the original Thor look like a total amateur. Eric Masterson. Eric was an architect, a regular guy, who worried about blueprints and deadlines until he risked his life to shield Thor from a blast. To save him, Odin merged their life forces. Imagine being a single dad, trying to pick up your kid from school while sharing your brain with an immortal thunder god. Eric eventually had to take over the job full-time, proving that an everyman could handle the psychological weight of the hammer through blue-collar grit and sheer earnestness. Loki. The god of mischief spent thousands of years being the unworthy brother, but he finally got his hands on the prize during a massive moral inversion. A spell flipped everyone's personality. Thor became a drunken bully, and Loki became a weeping, selfless hero. For one afternoon, Loki was the most noble person on Earth, and Mjolnir finally felt light in his hands. He used it to beat his brother's face in, which was probably the highlight of his immortal life. As soon as the spell broke, the hammer hit the floor, leaving Loki with a permanent reminder of the hero he could have been. Storm? Aurora Monroe is the queen of the elements. Loki once tried to trick her with a fake mallet called Stormcaster, hoping to turn her into his personal weather terrorist. It didn't work. When she finally got her hands on the real Mjolnir, she didn't use it to lead an army. She used it to smash the fake hammer and reclaim her own agency. Thor treats Storm with more respect than almost any other Avenger, because he knows she's the only one who can handle the thunder without breaking a sweat. Vision. The MCU version of Vision handled Mjolnir like he was passing a salt shaker at dinner. It was the most low-key, I'm the GOAT moment in cinematic history. The Avengers spent the whole movie debating the physics of an elevator being worthy.
But if you put the hammer in an elevator,
It would still go up. Elevator's not worthy.
Only for a purple robot with a mind stone to pick it up without even thinking about it. Either way, it was the ultimate trust me move that proved Vision was the real deal. Red Hulk. General Ross is a man who hates rules, especially magical ones. When he realized he couldn't lift the hammer because he's a jerk, he decided to cheat. He dragged Thor into space, where there is no gravity. Because the hammer has no weight in orbit, Ross was able to use the momentum to swing Thor around like a ragdoll. He technically didn't lift it. He just manipulated the physics of the environment. Miguel. In the year 2099, the world is a corporate hellhole, but Miguel O'Hara is the light in the dark. In a future where the original heroes are long gone, an ancient Steve Rogers handed the hammer to Miguel, knowing he was the only one who could handle the responsibility. Miguel didn't use it to smash villains. He used the Thor Force to heal the planet's atmosphere and rebuild a society that had lost its soul. Odin. Odin is the All-Father, but his ego is often bigger than his throne. There have been several moments in history where Odin's own choices made him unworthy of the very weapon he enchanted. Watching the King of Asgard struggle to lift a hammer on his own palace floor is the ultimate cosmic I told you so. Rogue. In one of the darkest what-if stories, Rogue's power absorption went into overdrive. She didn't just take Thor's strength, she accidentally sucked his entire soul out, leaving him a husk. Haunted by his memories and his noble spirit, Rogue found she could lift Mjolnir because she was literally wearing Thor's personality. Driven by a crushing sense of guilt, she spent her life trying to make up for the man she killed, proving that sometimes worthiness is a penance you're forced to carry. Silver Surfer. The Silver Surfer is basically a space saint, but he always felt too guilty about his past as Galactus' herald to be worthy. That changed in a future where Thanos had won and everything was dead. Norrin Radd spent millions of years training, meditating, and pushing his soul to the breaking point. When he finally returned to face the Mad Titan, he was the Fallen One, wielding Mjolnir with the power cosmic. It was the ultimate long game, showing that you can become worthy if you're willing to work for it for a few eons. Black Panther. The Panther legacy didn't start with a purple suit. It started in 1 million BC. The first Black Panther was a contemporary of a young, arrogant Odin. This ancient chieftain wasn't just a king. He was a primal force of nature. In cosmic flashbacks, we see that he was one of the few beings on Earth capable of handling the Uru hammer during the planet's infancy. Hela doesn't play by Odin's rules because she's older than them. In the MCU, when the hammer flew at her, she didn't try to lift it, she just stopped it. With a single hand, she caught the unliftable weapon and crushed it like a stale cracker. And she showed Thor that his favorite toy was just a piece of metal when compared to the absolute power of the goddess of death. Conan the Barbarian. Thor once got lost in time and ended up in the Hyborian Age, where he became best friends with the world's most famous barbarian. When Thor fell in battle, Conan picked up the mallet. Why was a thief and a pirate worthy? Because Conan lives by a code of savage honor. He's honest about who he is, and he never backs down from a fight for his brothers. The hammer respected his raw, unyielding spirit, allowing a man in a loincloth to strike down a dark god. Magneto. Magneto is the king of the, technically, I didn't lift it club. He knows that Mjolnir is made of Uru metal, which is magnetic. In the Ultimate Universe, he used his powers to seize the hammer in mid-air, manipulating the electromagnetic field to make it fly wherever he wanted. He was just treating a divine artifact like a puppet on a string. It was a chilling reminder that if you're smart enough to find the loophole, magic is just science you haven't mastered yet. Old King Thor. At the end of all things, when the stars are going out and the universe is a cold, dead graveyard, there is only Thor. He is the All-Father now, and the hammer is no longer a test. It is an extension of his very soul. He's seen everyone on this list live and die, and he carries their weight with him. He is the final proof that while many may hold the hammer for a moment, only one man was destined to carry the thunder until the very last light goes out. That's the list. The legends, the icons, and the absolute geniuses who hacked the system. If you think you're worthy, prove it by smashing that like button and subscribing for more deep dives. Drop a comment. Which of these loophole lifters was the most badass? And until next time, stay worthy.